When you see economies like Japan, economies like Germany that had been destroyed during the world wars, real estate was one of the boosters of the economy.
So do you think tools like AI, are they helping or is it only a gimmick till today?
Initially, it was a gimmick. And when you and I are selling a product like a penthouse, the first thing a customer asks is, do you have a physical walkthrough of it? That is where AI and virtual reality comes in. A buyer comes with multiple perspectives. You have to ensure that you connect to his perspective. You have more than 250 Fortune 500 companies working here. What is the kind of impression you're giving them? Real estate is definitely not a stock market intraday trade. You have to remain invested at least for half, if not a full decade. War zones like Syria, war zones like Iraq have had appreciation. Once you deliver a product, then you can command a higher price for the next. The government is realizing that instead of earlier chasing the industrialist or the entrepreneur, we have to support them.
Do you think FOMO plays or maybe a small or a slight role for a builder?
It actually plays a big role. If you go to a customer and tell him, sir, ले लो price बढ़ जाएगा, ठीक है कोई बात तब देखेंगे. But there's also a section which later comes in, यार उस time ले लिया तो सही रहता. The best time to buy real estate is.
Hello and welcome to Symbiosis Reality Show. This is Karan Sabharwal, Director at Symbiosis Infra Private Limited. Today we have a special guest with us. His name is Mr. Pradhuman Singh. He has a real estate experience of 18 plus years, serving companies like DAMAC, DLF, MR, and currently he is the Assistant Vice President at Krisumi. So now I welcome Mr. Pradhuman. We'll start with the podcast. So Pradhuman, it's great to have you here. So rather than talking about the industry first, let us know you better. So your hobbies, your interest, except real estate.
Karan, firstly, I am grateful that you give me the opportunity to be here with you. We are fellow from college days. I was in MBA, you were in engineering. And we are fellow engineers also, we are fellow realtors. Right. And having said that, I come from a small village in Muzaffarnagar.
Okay.
Spent most of my education years in Dehradun, Mussoorie, Weinberg, and then subsequently DPS Noida. Then ended up doing engineering in computer science. First job was at DRDO. And that is where I learned a lot of skills which I'm still using at hand. Then subsequently did my MBA from Amity. Okay. That's when we met for the first time.
Right.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I was the topper of my batch, CGPA 9.89, which was not something very common for a guy coming from a village. But then eventually had a campus placement at DLF, started the MR, then subsequently back to DLF, spent some time in DAMAC, and I've been in Krisumi since about more than 5 years now. I'll complete my 6 years, should the employer choose to keep me, in August 2019. And this, I've been recently also had 2 kids, twins, and a boy and a girl. So while my first passion was crossbow shooting, ever since I moved to Gurgaon in September, I've not been able to go to the shooting range. Now I've become a babysitter after office hours.
That's also important, right?
Yes, absolutely.
To contribute at home as well.
Absolutely. So that's about it.
Okay. When I see you working with Krisumi, but I see a very selective builders that you have only worked with. Somebody like a DLF, which is probably one of the best possible builders of North India. Then DAMAC, which is one of the leading builders of Dubai. Then again Krisumi, which is an Indo-Japanese product. Is there a thought process before selecting such category of builders?
I think, sometimes the developers select you more than you select them.
Right.
It's an opportunity, it's a set of mind. Plus, you don't work with companies, you work with teams, you work with bosses. And I think I've had excellent bosses, probably best in the industry. Back in DLF, it was Dr. Ananta ma'am. She's very, very active with a lot of other ventures now. And of course, Mr. Nanda has been behind M3M, Omax, Central Park, and now he's with Krisumi. So I realized that in order to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower first.
Right.
And we try and take the best from each. And over a period of time, there's a learning cycle involved.
Right.
So one important factor that I learned working with such business leaders is that there's a very strong sense of commitment to what you do for the organization. Right. And then organizations also have a culture. For example, when I was with MR MGF India at that time, we realized how synergy happens between a UAE-based developer and India-based developer. Of course,
Right.
EMAR and MGF have parted ways now, but then again, being a global giant, whether it was MR or DAMAC, or being a national player, whereas DLF, I believe there's a certain set of skills that each of these developers seek. And I may have had some of it, but I still realize that there's much more to learn on this. And skill sets, knowledge, they all probably bring you where you are today.
Right, right. So, what are your key learnings about real estate sector, apart from how to make a sale? Other than that, what are the key learnings that you have gone through in the entire tenure of maybe 13 plus years?
Yeah, almost 18.
18 years.
Almost
Okay.
18 years. And I think first and foremost, it's no longer a business of give and take. It's a lot to do with trust. It's
Right.
a lot to do with building a connect with people. It's a lot to do with ensuring that you meet expectations.
Right.
Because over a period of time, there's been a lot of difficulties the end users have faced.
Right.
There have been multiple challenges that the developers have also faced, whether
Right.
it was Noida, whether it's Gurgaon. And of course, the authorities also have had their own share of challenges. So real estate is not just about the money, not just the brick and mortar, not just about the cement and the
Right.
steel involved. I think there's a lot of sentiment that is involved.
Okay.
And once you are in a home, then you need a place to buy things, you need a place to work in. Real estate fulfills all those needs.
Right.
So we have to go beyond looking at real estate just as a profession, just as a way to earn money, make profits. But I think it's also a service to society in a larger perspective. Because when you see economies like Japan, economies like Germany that had been destroyed during the world wars, real estate was one of the boosters of the economy.
Right.
So the moment we realize that this is a profession where you're giving people spaces to live in, where their families will live, where their children will live, where startups will come in, where a person will open probably his first shop, put
Right.
all his life saving in, you have to ensure that that sacred aspect of space is maintained. You have to ensure that those ethos, those factors of confidence building,
Right.
wherein you give him what you committed to him,
Right.
is always met.
So trust and that confidence building is one of the most important parameters for a real estate growth. as per you.
Absolutely, absolutely. At least today, whether it was the UAE market, whether it's the Indian market, or even for that matter Singapore, or whether even for that matter European Union, I think everywhere it's become very much a factor of trust.
Okay. Do you think that now real estate is not product selling rather than experience selling? The kind of
Absolutely.
sales galleries we have now, it is more of experience selling than real estate selling, right?
You are bang on the target. You probably think from the engineer's perspective. So that's the reason why a lot of engineers end up doing much better at sales than MBA graduates, because I think there's a lot to do with the ability to visualize.
Right.
There's a lot to do with the ability to to get to the level of feeling the actual space that you're going to be living in.
Right.
A sample apartment may not suffice at all.
Right.
You may have to show a virtual walkthrough.
Right.
You may have to give them a feeling of how I would be, in a state of experience when I'm in my property.
Right.
So I think despite all the technology tools, whether it's AI or virtual reality, there's a degree of real-time experience that an end user seeks.
Right.
And oftentimes, me being from the developer side, you being from the channel partner side, we've had customers who have had far greater experience in examining and assessing property than both of us have.
Right.
So for a customer like that, we have to give him not just experience, not just a feel of things, but help him visualize
what
how
will
he
he
would,
finally get.
Yes, what will
from-
he finally get?
Okay. So do you think tools like AI, are they helping, or is it only a gimmick till today?
Initially, it was a gimmick.
Okay.
Initially, whether it was the media agencies or whether it was the marketers, they thought that AI is happening everywhere. It's being used in defense.
Could be replicated here as well.
Yes, it's being used in, say, automotive sector, technology-based sectors. But now, as you go on, we see that there are virtual walkthroughs.
Right.
And when you and I are selling a product like a penthouse, the first thing a customer asks is,
Hmm.
do you have a physical walkthrough of it?
Right. Right.
So that is where AI and virtual reality comes in. And I strongly believe now that real estate will be not just a game of trust, but technology as well. Whether
Okay.
technology being used for construction or whether technology being applied for sales, marketing, advertise, PR. So I think a lot of real estate sales has become very much a technology marketing based business.
Right. So with a brand like DLF, 30 to 35% of the clientele that they have is NRI,
Absolutely.
which means they are not physically going through the entire product per se,
Absolutely.
right?
Agreed.
So there are two reasons they are maybe looking to buy DLF. One is the credibility that DLF has
built over
a period of time. Second is the experience that they give to the client once they are onboarded
absolutely
as a client.
Absolutely.
So I think now other builders are also working on the same line and
Yes.
trying to build that credibility and
Very
that
true.
experience so
Very
that
true.
the conviction comes to the client.
Very true. Very true. So I think a lot of this is to do with the leadership of DLF. Whether
Right.
it's KP sir himself, an aeronautical engineer turned a brigadier, having worked with General Electric and having worked with Jack Welch and Rajiv sir himself, MIT grad. So they have generously used technology. Plus, over a period of time, they have deliveries to which a customer, a prospect can benchmark.
Right.
So if, say, I am launching a Dahlias, I have a Camellias to look back to, a Magnolias to look back to, a Rajas to look back to.
Right.
So not just virtual, but they have existential delivered projects to look at.
Right.
Of which a customer can always go and touch and feel. However, certain new ventures wherein they do not have deliveries in India,
Right.
but they have deliveries globally.
Right.
Say, for example, Krisumi, we are a Sumitomo venture. Sumitomo has delivered 300 plus projects globally. We also have been able to garner some trust from the customer, especially the ones, say, somebody who's had a Japan experience or Japan tour, or somebody who's been in the US. So one of our huge townships is in Texas.
Right.
So you're probably correct that the experience part, if you had a delivery, is taken care of.
Right.
Plus, real estate has also become a business of hospitality.
Right.
Hospitality is a very strong component of real estate.
Right.
From the sales point of view, from even developers building hotel structures, then leasing it out to Hiltons or Marriott's, or Hyatts. So
they have some credible deliveries as well.
Yes, absolutely. So if you have a credible delivery, it's always an advantage.
So just for example, if a brand wants to come into real estate now and they want to have the demeanor and everything of a big brand, it's tough to start with that for the first project. That's why you see these bigger experiential sales galleries, just to tell the client that this is the vision of the builder per se, come into the market now. Is that the reason of those expansive galleries that we see now?
Partly yes. Because a first time buyer, when he enters a sales gallery like this, has a wow experience. Oh wow, this is going to be a great product. But a buyer who's been in the market for a while, for him, he can even consider it an eyewash.
Right.
That I'm being,
just trapped.
Yeah, I mean, let's not whether it's trap or you can say that enticed, tempted.
Right.
Somewhat. So a buyer will want a space to live in, maybe for also renting it out, maybe for taking appreciation, and then a hybrid model is rental capitalization model.
Right.
So a buyer comes with multiple perspectives.
Right.
You have to ensure that you connect to his perspective.
Right.
For example, a developer who is probably giving smaller spaces.
Right.
His product may not be for the end users, but when he pitches it that you can rent it out or you're getting so and so much appreciation, the buyer may do his backward calculations and then test with existing periphery models that has an appreciation really come in that geography.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think buyers are far more well-informed than some of the realtors themselves these days. So we have to be very, very transparent. We have to be very, very on facts.
So if you had the money now and you want to put your money to have some capital enhancement, right?
Right.
as you are from Krisumi, so you can't pick CPR as an option. I give you an option of NPR, which is Dwarka Expressway. I'll give you an option of SPR, which is just before CPR. I give you an option of Extension Road or Golf Course Road. Where would you, as an investor, put your money now?
Right. So all the three geographies, all the three locations have their own crucial advantages. As a developer, I'd like to see which segment I'm targeting.
Okay.
If I have a segment which is 50 to 60 CR plus, then even if the stakes are high, I might choose Golf Course Road.
Okay.
But if I look at a segment of people which Gurgaon has, a migrant crowd.
Right.
People say who are from Delhi.
Right.
People who are from Pan India, whether Bangalore or whether Hyderabad. I mean, you have a lot of South Indians in Gurgaon today. They would probably look at an infrastructure point of view.
Okay.
And for them, Dwarka Expressway is the first click for two reasons. Again,
because of the connectivity?
Connectivity to the airport and fairly decent infrastructure, which connects them to Delhi also.
Right.
SPR is really centralized. SPR, if has that connectivity in future to not just Mumbai, but also to the Zevar airport, then SPR is also a good place to begin with. Okay. But then coming back to it all, the central of it all is CPR.
So if you have 10 crores in your bank, where will you put your money? SPR, NPR, Extension or Golf Course Road?
So CPR, Krisumi is of course not given an option. I think I'll still put it on the Dwarka Expressway. That's where the maximum appreciation would come.
Okay.
As on today. Okay. Because SPR is great. Golf Course Road has probably peaked out now.
Okay.
Golf Course Road is probably peaked out now. Extension, SPR, I'm looking at them as a similar entity because they're quite adjacent. One major factor I see lacking in SPR, otherwise I would put all my money there, is when it rains, majority of the SPR properties become beachfront properties.
Okay.
And you get a Dubai-like feel that it's like a beachfront. I wish I had a hovercraft.
So if somebody wants to have a beachfront house for the rainy season, then he can pick SPR as of now, as per you.
And even Golf Course had its share of waterfront, facing properties. When you, in fact, it looks like Haridwar, Har Ki Padi situation. Everything is floating there, so it's quite a great thing to look at. But on a personal level, I think that can be taken care of. I believe the developers and the local authorities have to work together. They have to go towards greater water conservation practices.
Right.
They have to work towards better sewage systems, especially for Gurgaon. It's very crucial.
Right.
You have more than 250 Fortune 500 companies working here.
Right.
What is the kind of impression we're giving them?
Absolutely.
So, not just intra-city road connectivity, but intra-city drainage systems
have to be very well worked out.
Yes. Right. And with water-based challenges, while there is water supply in Gurgaon, we have to create systems like they have. One of them is Global City, where they planned a reservoir from lake. So we will have to have similar systems all across Gurgaon to ensure that a water crisis of the type that Bangalore had does not take place. And you and I probably know Bangalore had multiple lakes and gardens at some point in time. Right. Today, a lot of that land has,
they've worked on it hard.
Absolutely. Right. So we at this need such water conservation systems so that water supply requirements are met, and you see developments are coming on. So water supply would be needed. Electricity supply would also be needed. So we'll have to use renewable sources, whether it's solar, whether it's other renewable sources. Right. So that's the need of the hour.
Okay.
Real estate is not a casino gamble in Macau. Real estate is definitely not a stock market intraday trading.
Right.
You would have seen, people doing intraday trading. Aaj maine itne bacha liye, itne kama liye, itne kama liye.
Right.
Real estate is definitely a long-term game.
Right.
So you have to remain invested at least for half, if not a full decade.
Okay. So at least a horizon of 5 to 7 years
is when you gain sizable benefit.
Okay.
There's no real estate in the world which will not shoot up in value. Okay. War zones like Syria, war zones like Iraq have had appreciation in the land prices because there are buyers now.
Okay.
There was war yesterday, today there's peace. People want to build, people want to construct, people want to live in. Similarly, Japan was itself at the brink of war, say,
Right.
about more than half a century ago.
Hmm.
Today, Tokyo is probably the most expensive place to buy in.
Right.
So it's a cycle, but an increasing cycle.
So as
Eventually-
rightly put, it is a 45-degree
Sine curve.
cycle, sine curve, right? That's how it is.
Cyclic, but no two cycles will be the same.
Okay.
A cycle may complete in
So-
6 months,
so
a cycle
the-
may take
Okay.
6 years also. But eventually the prices will increase.
And the new cycle will break the records of the past cycle.
Yeah, patterns
That's-
will keep changing.
the
Pattern will
pattern
keep changing.
changing.
Pattern will keep changing. Absolutely.
Okay. You would have physically or yourself seen the downturn which happened post 2012.
That's correct. That's correct. That's
Right.
correct. That's correct.
And there was a major correction which happened post
Yes.
2012.
Absolutely.
And the market was in a lull for
Ab-
almost good 7 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it started peaking once the COVID happened and
That's
beyond
right.
that.
That's right. That's
And
right.
now it has been on the upward curve.
That's
through.
right. That's right. That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So if what was the primary reason of that correction? Was it builders were overpriced at that time, or was it something else?
Okay. So it's all about a perspective. Blind men, they have an elephant.
Hmm.
Somebody touches the tail, says it looks like a snake.
Hmm.
Somebody touches a leg of a elephant, says it's like a pillar.
Right.
Somebody touches the trunk of the elephant and says it's some
Alright.
other animal. So it's only a matter of perspective. Glass half empty, glass half full.
Right.
So when we see, there are multiple factors. One of them which drove it was the Lehman Brothers thing.
Right.
Bankers keep lending it out. The property developer,
The subprime
Yeah,
crisis and
the
everything.
subprime crisis was what triggered it.
Right.
However, things have gone past. Thankfully, Reserve Bank in India is one of the best banks in the world. It looks with not just a lens but a microscope.
Hmm.
The basis points, the repo rate.
Hmm.
We have to credit the RBI for it. A lot of our economic growth,
Hmm.
whether it's the bank's lending rate or whether it is developers being given a RERA and escrow account. I think
Hmm.
these are tools which ensure that such repetition does not occur.
But what was the primary reason? I'll just come back to the same point.
I think first the United States themselves, US markets.
Was it a overpriced market in 2012? Because technically the
Partly
price,
yes, partly yes.
or was it? There can be 2-3 reasons for it,
Yes,
right?
multiple
One factor can be the price was not natural to the market, right? It was
Right.
overpriced.
That's true.
Second is the builders which were present that time
Right.
were of not the A+ category branded builders.
Right. Absolutely.
And finally, they deceived people in terms of delivery as well.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
A lot of these builders, we see a lot of structures which are half done.
That's
And they are like this from last 7 to 10, 15 years, right?
Yes, absolutely. We see multiples of them.
Right. Multiples of them in Gurgaon.
And Noida as well.
Noida. So, if we had the branded builders in 2012, do you think this lowdown or correction would have partly become better?
So one interesting thing, we didn't have a RERA back then.
Okay.
Now we do have a RERA.
Right.
Secondly, I believe the audits,
Hmm.
internal, external,
Hmm.
somewhere were compromised.
Okay.
There was a PwC crisis.
Right.
Satyam happened.
Right. Right.
So while you rightly said that the prices had been inflated,
Hmm.
did the developer or the financial body backing the developer have enough funds to deliver a product like that?
Right.
We have a crisis. We had a crisis with a company in Noida. I would
Hmm.
not like to name them. They were financially strong enough to buy some of the biggest brands in Gurgaon.
Right.
But then, how they allocated their funds?
Hmm.
You see, the mindset is that I have the money today. Do I put in the money in the construction for which I've originally got, or do I put in that money and buy a new parcel of land?
Right.
So, while the intent may not be really to rob a buyer, but the way it was put, the way it was financially managed,
Hmm.
was not reckless, it was sheer stupidity.
Okay.
Once you deliver a product,
Hmm.
then you can command a higher price for the next,
Right.
and so on and so forth, which is exactly what DLF has done all over the years.
Right.
They've commanded a higher price because they've had a share of deliveries. I believe the lesson from that crisis is that please deliver. please give the
Focus-
commitment.
okay.
Yes.
Focus on delivery first,
Absolutely.
rather than
Absolutely.
having a new launch.
Absolutely. And if you delivering good products,
Hmm.
the authorities will give you land.
Right.
The farmers themselves will give you land.
Right.
That please come and build here
Right.
because you've had this delivery.
Right.
However, I believe people have learned their lessons, and those who haven't will eventually learn.
Do you think that senior living is one concept which will catch up in the next 10 years more and more?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Senior living is here to stay. Senior living has existed in the Nordic countries for quite some time.
Is it not against the ethos of the Indian culture?
Okay, let me put it that way. Most of my family is in the Forge. I mean, almost sizable chunk of them. So all of them, once they pass out, say from the IMA or FOS Academy, whatever, they move into the field.
Right.
Of course, parents are there. Maybe some of them are old Forgies themselves.
Right.
But if I have to move out of my residential space because of my job, I want to ensure that my parents live a comfortable life.
Right.
While I may have a palatial, Haveli back in the village,
Right.
age does catch up with them.
Right.
And, as, the number of older people
Increase.
scale down,
Right.
it is important that whatever life they have, they should get all the medical and all the,
All those needs are catered to.
attention taken care of.
Right.
And it's not always possible for me to bring excellent nursing facilities to them in the village.
Hmm.
I may have to, some point of time, give them a space where they're comfortable, and at the same time, they should not be felt that they're patients in the hospital.
Right.
That is where senior living kicks in.
Right.
So I believe, and senior living is not really just a developer function. I believe it's a service,
Right.
which a developer has to give it in collaboration with a service provider.
Right.
Which exactly these Max people have done. Similarly, I think a lot of other developers may come up with it, and I think it's a great market to explore.
Okay. So, what's your take? Are these luxurious properties safe investment in 2025?
Important thing, luxury property was always considered an end user product
Right.
to begin with. Later, a section of property owners
Mm-hmm.
globally realized that if I have multiple properties, what would I do?
Right.
So if I am probably a royal in Rajasthan, so my relatives are, they ended up to convert it into a hotel.
Right.
But if I'm a tech tycoon in Bangalore or Gurgaon or Hyderabad and I have multiple properties, I may begin with renting them out.
Right.
That helps me maintain it, that helps me get some value out of it. And last but not the least, beyond rental capitalization, if I feel I have a buyer, you see some of the biggest transactions in Gurgaon in real estate were resales.
Right. Right.
So resale or property trading itself is a business.
Right.
So when you sell a property, you are probably selling an opportunity to rent, also an opportunity to trade, also an opportunity to rent and trade from a rental capitalization point of view. Plus, oftentimes, if I have been a real estate trader for a while, I also become a collector.
Right.
Sometimes the kind of parties I frequent, every time there's a new launch,
Right.
I have a flaunt value.
Right.
I have
an
bought
asset.
it. I have an
Yes.
asset there, and I have an asset there, and I bought it there, and I bought it there.
Right. Right.
And that asset holding capacity often has a book value to your product. So
Right.
if I am a business owner, that asset adds to my
Portfolio.
portfolio,
Right.
which actually increases over a period of time.
Okay.
So for major section of industrialists also, instead of fixed deposits, they end up buying properties.
Right.
Newspapers have their own model.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
They give an ad space for a
Right.
property space,
Right.
which increases in value over a period of time, and they
Right.
sell off. That's also a revenue model, you see.
Right. So that's
So-
for
yes.
times, right?
Absolutely.
They own so many assets across India.
Absolutely.
Because they do a barter for any
Absolutely.
advertisement that they do.
Absolutely.
They
Absolutely.
take properties in exchange, and that's how they
Absolutely.
are growing their real
That's
estate
true. That's
portfolio
true.
as well.
That's true. That's true.
Because they also see a lot of
Yes.
value in keeping their asset class as real estate.
Very true. Very true. And you would also realize there's a massive market of expat leasing.
Right.
Today in Gurgaon, you have more expats than ever.
Right.
Whether it's Japanese or whether it is, say, Koreans. We have demand for luxurious property from them.
Right.
CXO ranking, a C-suite person may not always buy it. He may want to rent it out.
But he may want to live in a swanky house.
Yes.
For the tenure that he's in India.
Yes, absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So in terms of rental requirement, these luxury properties will have a bigger demand.
Absolutely.
5 years down the line.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to invest in luxurious properties, he should go ahead and do that investment.
Yes, and there's a bigger market that awaits because when I'm a developer, I have a certain right to move in property, and I've done a massive expat leasing. So you would have seen in properties in Gurgaon where you have a higher percentage of expats living in. Not just the rental value, but even the property net or net appreciated value is much higher.
Right. Okay. So the capex also rises.
Capex definitely rises.
Definitely rises. Okay.
Capital appreciation definitely takes place.
Okay. And so we were talking about RERA, right? And now with the changes that have happened in the last 5-7 years, and that RERA compliance has become more stringent and all, do you still feel that is it able to cover all the bases for somebody who's buying, or is it still lopsided with regard to the builder?
Thankfully, it is, while framed, you see, land being a state subject, every state has a different RERA. So when the state authority forms the
RERA
act,
right,
or the entire body that governs it, they want to ensure that they don't kill the messenger, which is the developer.
Right.
You see, there have been a lot of fingers raised at developers, but we as citizens, as professionals, as developer, channel partner, and customer have to understand that we all have to be in a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
Symbiosis
it has to be win-win for all.
Yes, it has to be a win-win for all. It can't be that I cut your legs to grow taller. Right. Not really. It's a very karmic connection. If the developer helps the channel partners as well as the customers, and if the customers and channel partners help the developer, all of them grow together.
Right.
DLF has enjoyed that. You probably know that better than anybody else. And some of the other developers have also had that relationship. So similarly, authorities also have to bear in mind that they contribute to that growth.
Right.
Today, Gurugram as such is the highest revenue generating, say, district for the Haryana government. It is probably because the developer community put in their hard work on it, not just DLF, but everybody else did. The channel partners did, the customers did. There's revenue coming in.
Because Delhi could have expanded from all sides.
Yes, absolutely.
But Gurgaon became the epicenter of the entire development beyond Delhi.
Yes.
So something right was done by the developers who came to Gurgaon first.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Airport being the major infrastructure that drove it. But at the same time, when airport came in, the companies started to come in. They employ residential space. Residential space became, then they need retail space. So it's a domino effect that you have.
Right.
Similarly, when Noida airport comes, it will have the similar factors coming in. Good part is there are international developers who stepped in today.
Okay.
And it's purely because RERA has had some fair role to play. But of course, over a period of time, there will be inclusions, there will be seclusions. Such government acts undergo changes over a period of time. So it's a very dynamic thing.
Okay.
And I think there would be more improvement over a period of time as the market matures, as the rules, regulations undergo an overhaul. So yes, I think it should be for the good.
Okay.
And India becoming a developed economy in this journey, we've already become the 4th largest economy in the world today. So the government is realizing that instead of earlier chasing the industrialist or the entrepreneur, we have to support them.
Right.
So it has to be a supportive thing for all.
Okay. Can you, for our audience, elaborate more on global city and how this will change the entire Gurgaon real estate dynamics?
Absolutely.
And a basic understanding of what is global city.
So global city is about 1,080 acres, almost encompasses 36, 37 A, B and all those sectors, which thankfully share a boundary with Krisumi and Max also. It has been poised as a hub for technology, for research, for innovation, walk to work concept,
Okay.
And work, play, live together, meeting the environmental and sustainability goals,
Right.
and ensuring that there's high income, high volume, high value jobs created.
Got it.
So it is eventually going to become the business bay of Gurgaon multiplied by 4, which is
Right.
in Dubai, and will become an economic hub. A lot of business will happen, a lot of growth will happen. There'll be a massive boost to the residential market, there'll be a massive boost to the office space market. And of course, it's coming up with a lake there,
Right.
which will have a water reservoir of its own. And I think innovative technologies are being put in. So, for example, you have underground systems wherein the pipelines, you can actually have a truck going in, which has got the plumbing, electric lines, everything. So that digging of road that you see every day happening will not happen there.
Okay.
So it's a very sustainable, very robust, and a fairly well-planned city. And I think the Haryana government, once completes it, would have done a fantastic job.
Okay. Do you see all the A+ category developers across India? Somebody like Oberoi Realty, somebody like Hiranandani, and all these best possible builders across India coming to Global City? Do you see that happening?
They have shown an interest. They have definitely shown an interest. And it only depends upon the kind of cohesion or mutual agreement in financial as well as business aspects that HSIIDC and the developers who have shown aspiration to move in there. If there's a synergy, if there's a agreement, I think they'll come in. I don't see why they should not.
Okay. Yeah. So you'll see a lot of international standard developers coming to the Gurgaon market.
Absolutely. UAE developers have shown their interest. So,
okay.
I mean, there's been interest from all parts of the world for Global City. Okay. So, I think ACOM is the architect there. And having said that, with the proximity to the airport, with the proximity to the Reliance City, with proximity to the entire manufacturing belt, I think that's it's a great opportunity for them.
Okay. So, real estate market in India, do you think it is FOMO selling?
It's a question which
and being from a builder side,
yes,
do you think FOMO plays one of the most, or maybe a small or a slight role for a builder?
It actually plays a big role. It actually plays a big role because initially, if I'm to drive my sales, I will start with a FOMO training module for my channel partners. Not Krisumi, but a lot of other developers would do that. Not Krisumi, mind you. But having said that, FOMO was always the case. When we were employees at DLF, we were management trainees at, we would see lines after lines of people coming for allotment.
Right.
That is nothing but FOMO.
Right.
I don't miss out the opportunity to buy in. But now, since you pose this question, a buyer is a very informed individual. That FOMO factor is slowly fizzling out. A buyer knows the product he wants.
Right.
He may have a capacity for Dahlias, but he may buy an Astra.
Right. So, the FOMO tactic is
slowly fizzling out.
Okay, it is fizzling out because the buyer is more informed now.
Yes, absolutely. It's very informed buyer.
For someone who has made a few investments in the last 5 to 7 years, understands how the FOMO works in closing a transaction.
Absolutely.
For somebody who has jumped in now,
yes.
Do you think are they becoming the prey and buying at a higher price?
Okay, this is a...
And you have to be honest.
Yeah, of course, that's why I'm here. Had I not been honest, you probably not called me here. And honesty is a very, very, very expensive trait. You can't expect it from cheap people. That doesn't mean I'm expensive. My company doesn't pay me so much, if you were to say. But having said that, this when we grew up in a village, we really never felt the need to lie. Lying and fear go together. Okay. You see, I'm coming to psychology. I had taken psychology as an optional for some of my government exams. So line, fear, anger go together.
Right.
A lot of people who you see exhibit a lot of anger have a lot of fear inside. I got my black belt 25 years later. Reason, it took me 25 years to conquer my fears.
Right.
And I realize even if somebody says anything to me at work, at home, there's not much of an anger coming out. Sometimes I'm surprised. Similarly, in the real estate markets, if you go to a customer and tell him, sir, ले लो price बढ़ जाएगा. ये क्या ठीक है कोई बात नहीं. तब की तब देखेंगे. You have that answer very often coming.
Right.
But there's also a section which later comes in, यार उस time ले लिया होता तो सही रहता.
Right.
So eventually, doing all the mathematics, doing all the extrapolation, the best time to buy real estate is now, not yesterday, not tomorrow.
Right. Because today is today's factual price.
You start at zero.
Right.
And it has to increase over a period of time. There can be wars across the world, but Dubai market is a market which flourishes at the time of war.
Right. Right.
Today, UAE, Saudi, Israelis have an understanding. There's more Israeli investment pouring into the UAE.
Right. It is. Right.
Similarly, I believe, from my perspective, I think the government could make it slightly easier for expats to own property also. We at Krisumi face this question over and over again. A lot of our Japanese investors, people who want to rent it out eventually, say, I may want to buy and settle here. Of course, he might have to renounce his Japanese citizenship, but UAE doesn't have such a issue. So, if we do partially open the Indian real estate market to expats, I can assure you, Indian real estate market will overtake most of the major real estate markets across the world.
Okay. One more term which is one more term which is now there in the market is only on invite. Right. You see a certain category of builder saying that if you're invited, then only you can buy it. Is it a gimmick or is it something which is factually happening now in the ultra luxury segment of Delhi NCR real estate?
Again, this is a question which is like walking on the razor's edge. I have a customer who has the money. He's sitting with a check on the table. But sometimes I think, do I have to sell him? Because oftentimes when I have a class of Indian CXOs, Japanese companies, Navy, Air Force, Army, IFS officers, and he's a slightly different breed. He has the money but may not have the sophistication, may not have the education, may not have that class. Do I sell that product to him? Because something very common you will face in Gurgaon. Some of the best societies
will have
the classiest of people.
A typical.
You have a guy playing a DJ of a certain
different. Got it.
Genre to say it.
Right.
All the half the residents say, this is not what we paid for.
Right.
So sometimes to maintain a certain degree of homogeneity within the residents, you will have to classify your product.
So is the builder strong enough to say a no to the check?
We have been no. We've done that. I'll be frank with you, there have been times when I realized that there's a buyer, but his needs, his wants are not what
matching with the product.
Yes.
Okay.
So not all developers would do this, but a developer who has character would do it.
Okay.
For his existing residents.
Okay.
For his existing buyers. And it's okay to do it. Reason being, you see, we have an EWS section. Every category of development in Gurgaon has to have an EWS. Even in Delhi, there's an EWS section. Most of the developments have to have an EWS section. That is for bringing, a degree of socio-economic, parity. But if I feel one particular resident may prove a bit difficult for other residents
Right.
to live in that given society. My experience says that it's okay not to go ahead with the deal.
Okay. So one more thing which I've now realized in the last 1 year with the launches coming up in Gurgaon, you see a lot of size parity in a township. So they are coming up not with a 2 and a 2 plus S, then a 3, then a 3 plus S, then a 4 and a 4 plus S in the same condominium. Right? This is something which is happening now. Basically, one, for example, DLF, like they have come up with DLF Pirvana. It is one uniform size for the entire township. So you're basically having one gentry in the entire township. Do you think this is the way to go forward, or do you see mix of different typologies happening in condominiums in future as well?
Okay, we have a one example, Skycourt.
Which is DLF Skycourt, right?
Yes, Skycourt. Having the same size with similar, it seems so that similar class of people lives there. It's not always the case.
Okay.
Oftentimes, somebody who was living in a 5,000 square feet apartment wants to move into something which is 2,000 square feet. Why? Because majority of the families moved out.
Right.
Do I need that space? And there have been reverse transitions also. Somebody who's staying in 2,500 square feet
moves
space
to a 5,000 as well.
moves to 5,000 because the family size has grown.
Right.
There's a financial parity and then there's a need-based parity also.
Right.
So, if someone wants a certain size for their living space, has the capacity to pay for it in rental or with outright purchase, they will move into it.
Right.
It does give a feel that, okay, certain similar class of people will live there. But what if the person who lives there is a tenant and not a buyer?
Right. That can be the case.
The tenant may not have that purchasing power.
Right.
Or you say that I'll not rent it out at all, which is probably not going to happen ever.
Right. Right.
So, size homogeneity is a concept which can be introduced, but it does not necessarily mean that purchasing power parity or disposable income parity would be met.
Okay. Is the builder smart enough to make a glorified version of a house as a sample apartment and mentioning something different in the builder-buyer agreement which the buyer is not aware about? Is it also happening?
Now, here is my advice to the buyers and the channel partners. When you see a sample, it is primarily indicative of a specific size. You may be buying a 2, but the sample could be of 3.
Right.
The vision would be grander.
Right.
You may be buying a 4, but a sample could be again of 3 plus S.
Right.
The actual prospect is smaller.
Right.
Now, here is where the brass tacks happens or the buck stops there. When you buy a property, you get a specifications list. It could be a part of a brochure.
Right.
When you file for RERA, you have to be very candid about the specs. But when you make a sample apartment, it is important now as a RERA guideline to mention that this is a part of the final offering or not.
Okay.
Because oftentimes, if you go in our sample, you will see that mentioned that this is a part of the final offering. And suppose if you see a dining table, this is not a part of the offering.
Right.
You see a chair, this is not a part of the offering. So it is the duty of the builder to apprise the customer.
It is only indicative.
It is indicative.
Okay.
Prior RERA and prior certain crackdowns that had not happened. Thankfully now, developers, as they're developing a sample, are supposed to mention that.
Okay. One more thing I want to ask was, how do you see Ahmedabad growing as an investment proposition for the investors who are there in the market?
Ahmedabad is probably one of the few cities in the country which can actually give Mumbai a run for its money.
Okay.
In the recent times, we've been seeing massive movement of businesses towards Ahmedabad. The only other city we have seen such massive Japanese presence after Gurgaon is Ahmedabad.
Okay.
Huge manufacturing, almost competing with Pune neck to neck in automotive components and say, big manufacturing bases of Hondas and Suzukis and other major giants. I think Ahmedabad is poised to become the financial capital of the country.
Okay.
Over a period of time, competing with Mumbai. And I've recently seen, of course, Adani's based there. The Ambanis have been moving a sizable chunk of their operations there. Plus Gujarat, of course, not just being the Prime Minister and the Home Minister state, but Gujarat has excellent connectivity from here.
Right.
And so I strongly feel it's a very good investment destination. And I think it's a very, very economically vibrant city with a very good business culture. And I think investment, whether in Gift City or Dholera or other options
Which are there in Ahmedabad.
within there in Ahmedabad, are a wonderful perspective to look at from an investment point of view.
Okay. You see a lot of these mutual fund companies who are managing portfolios of their clients in a very professional way, right? Real estate was never that professional in terms of approach from the channel partners. Do you see that change happening now? Now
Absolutely.
there are more professional channel partners.
Absolutely.
Having a bigger team, working on the data and all.
Wait, you're bang on. See, we started with the Dubai note. You have a property management firm active in Gurgaon, which manages the property for the NRIs.
Right.
I'd not like to name because the competitors say, why did you not name us? Why do you name them?
Right.
But then let's put it across. If I have an NRI guy who stays in New York or probably stays in Sydney, he has a property in Gurgaon. He doesn't want to sell it, but he wants to rent it out.
Right.
There's an agency which can put the fit outs in. There's an agency which can rent it out for a fee and then transfer the rent to him. It's becoming a far more organized business over a period of time. Not just because of it, not just because of competition, but it is also the need of the hour.
Okay.
If I have a asset space, I'm willing to spend on it to ensure that the cash flow continues smoothly.
Right. 3 suggestions to a real estate investor, as per you. 3 suggestions for an investor.
First thing, study the market well.
Okay.
When I say study the market well, get different perspectives. Second thing, always, every time, whenever possible, go for a reputed developer.
Okay.
A reputed developer could be global, could be local, should have had deliveries in the geography, outside the geography. Third, focus on quality, focus on connectivity.
Okay.
Focus on location. Location and quality are the 2 drivers that will get you maximum appreciation.
Okay. 3 suggestions for an end user.
Firstly, see the distance of your prospect living space from your work point of view, from your spouse's work point of view, from your kids' education point of view.
Okay.
Take a location which fulfills those needs.
Okay.
Second thing, more than the developer's repute, look at how the property is being managed.
Okay.
Who would manage it?
Okay.
How would the upkeep be?
Okay.
Third, and probably a perspective, be very sure of the size.
Okay.
Be very sure of the size. If you're a family man, today you may be going for 2, eventually you'll have to go for 3.
Right.
Stretch a bit now and reap the benefits later.
Okay.
So, right size your property. If you're an older living person and you're living in larger size, if your kids move out, which they eventually will,
a smaller size will
go for a
suffice.
smaller size that you can manage and live in with ease. Oftentimes for elderly, it becomes difficult to manage a larger space. You can have n number of servants.
Right.
But larger spaces may make you feel lonely and there aren't too many people around.
Got it.
So it's best to move into a space which has the amenities. Size is a secondary constraint then. Your medical needs, your physical needs, your food and safety needs must be of priority.
Perfect. If you want to buy a house, will you buy in Gurgaon or Noida?
Both.
If you had the money only for one, then? So I'm not trying to create a war between Noida and, so there is no that kind of scenario. But the only thing is, where do you see more growth? That is why the question is arising.
Now,
Everything else is done. The size is okay. The price is suiting you. Everything is, the location is suiting at both the places. Where will you buy a house for yourself?
right now in Gurgaon, I have a job here.
Hmm.
5 years down the line, if I have a better opportunity, it's where my job is where I buy a property. So right now it's going to be Gurgaon.
Okay. So thank you, Pradhuman, for sparing time and coming over. It was wonderful chatting with you and discussing about real estate. You have been a pro with 18 plus years of experience.
Thank you so much.
And we have worked in the best of brands, maybe DLF, DAMAC, MR, and now Krisumi. Thank you for sharing your vision and the entire ethos that you carry with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate, much appreciated.